Hey, folks, are you experiencing a financial windfall or financial struggles? Listen, this next guest is Joseph Okaly, like the sunglasses, and he is going to share some fantastic things because we live in a world right now where financial instability, if you're watching headlines, you can get quite nervous. But Joseph is a seasoned expert. He has a ton of fantastic content in this new book. So, Joseph, first of all, the why. What's behind this book?
Yeah, so I've been an advisor now for 17 years, and it's all I know. I interned at this firm, worked my way up through being a financial advisor, got my CFP designation, certified financial planner, and now I'm the owner of the firm. So I went from intern
Wow.
to owner in about 15 years, and so it's been something that has changed my life. It's given me this financial literacy that I could use in my own life for my own family, and it's just made such an impact. And I'm so proud of the work that we do with the 250 or so families directly. However, I'd like to help a lot more people than that. And I can't work directly with
Yeah.
everyone. So my goal is to help 100,000 middle-class families out there. I'm middle class. We work with middle-class families. And so I designed this book, The Financial Pinwheel, to try to help people gain control, gain that literacy that we don't get in school, unfortunately, when it comes to financial education, and doing it through an analogy, which is the financial pinwheel, because finances can't always be super fun. A lot of times they're very intimidating. And so working through a story, an analogy to really help that understanding and help you be in a position to make those positive steps forward. That's what I'm trying to do for everybody else out there.
Oh, that's good, man. And I would say you're a good speaker too, because I've never heard such a good, clear, concise, direct. That was good. That was good.
Having a podcast helps too. Yes, you get
Oh,
some practice.
tell us about the podcast. What is that called?
So it's called the Enjoy More 30s, and it was targeted specifically for younger families in particular. And so I do a lot of podcast guesting pieces as well. So both domestically on some international podcasts also. So
Wow.
you get better at something when you do it. So as much as I can do to put more information out there, help more people, that would be what really makes me happy. So that 100,000 middle class family goal, whatever way I have to take to get there, that's what I'm going to do.
That's so good. And I love subtitles, building your perpetual financial energy machine. So talk to us about that. I mean, obviously you jump into this pinwheel metaphor. Talk to us. It's been a while since I've held a pinwheel in my life.
Yeah. So the concept for the book actually came from my daughter. I have two young children. I have an 8-year-old daughter, Avery, and a 5-year-old son, Noah. And so when my daughter Avery was younger, we had a pinwheel in the backyard, and she
Yeah.
picked it up. And you know how little kid, they muster all the energy they can have, and they try to blow into the pinwheel, and it moves for about a second. And then they get frustrated. So she comes up to dad and says, "Dad, can you blow into the pinwheel?" And I send it spinning, but eventually it stops. And so she looked at me, she looked at the pinwheel, and she said, "But Dad, how can we have it spin forever?" And
Ooh.
in the real world, we can't have a perpetual energy motion machine. Things have to stop. But in the financial world, that's not the case. We can create this perpetual financial energy machine. We can create the batteries, the financial batteries, so that the financial pinwheel or our lifestyle, the expenses, the way we want to live can spin forever. Because unless you want to work forever and create your own financial energy forever to power that pinwheel, you need to take steps to be able to have it spin for you down the road so that you don't always have to work to make it spin. So that's what the
Ooh.
financial pinwheel does for you.
I love that. I love how you are so clear on your target audience, whether you're an employee, entrepreneur, or somewhere in between. So you're basically saying, look, everybody who is open to learn and I like your middle class, identification there. So these are for people that they want to get ahead. Maybe they saw their parents have things and they want to kind of move in that way. How much you mentioned financial literacy. I like that term. How much is there financial illiteracy in today's world?
It's really scary how much there is. I mean, we learn about algebra, we learn about Shakespeare, and I'm not saying those are bad things. It's all well and good. At the same time, we're all going to grow up. We're all going to have jobs. We're all going to have income, and we're going to have to manage that. We're going to have to build our family around that, and we don't oftentimes are given those tools to be able to do that for ourselves down the road. And so that's the concept of what we're trying to accomplish here with this book, because most people want to feel good financially. Most people want to have that feeling of, I know how the different parts connect together. And the only way we could feel that way is if we're given that education. And unfortunately, when it comes to finances, they're very taboo. Most people don't like talking about them. You could see some crazy spring break photos online, but most people don't talk about their money.
Yeah.
And so it's this kind of catch-22 where we all need it, and yet it's uncomfortable to talk about. We're intimidated. We see people that are driving big fancy cars and have big houses, and we say, oh, they have a lot of wealth. I must be the only one that doesn't know how to do this. When in real terms, they probably just have a really big pinwheel, and it may be pretty hard for them to spin down the road if they're not taking the right steps on the side to build up those batteries as well. So let's create a resource that's not intimidating. Let's create a resource that's understandable, and let's give the power back to the middle class family to be able to take this, read it, see how they fit in, because every middle class family is not built the same. If you're an entrepreneur, your way to build your financial battery and have your pinwheel spin perpetually is different than if you are a teacher and you're working and you have a pension, and the pension is going to make up most of your income. So the book dissects that as well. So you could see, hey, where do I fit? Because it's not one size fits all. The concepts might be universal, but how do I apply it to me, right? We want to know how this information can help me. How can it make my life better in the simplest, easiest, most understandable way? So that's what the financial pinwheel does. It walks you through the 4 steps, just like 4 parts of the most common pinwheel. And it walks you through that piece so you can go through, hey, what am I spending? What am I saving? How do I build up those batteries? And how do I protect all this great stuff that I now have so that I can feel good and just go out and live life instead of worrying about money?
Oh, that's good. That is good. And you mentioned the person with the big fancy car. Maybe they are in poverty and they've just totally maxed payments and credit cards. I mean, there's that situation too these days where we think people are wealthy based upon things, but I think in the book you talk about it's not always what the eye sees.
Correct. Yeah, and it's not about having a small pinwheel versus having a big. You can have whatever size pinwheel you want, but let's be more intentional about it. Let's know what the trade-offs are for one or the other. If we want to have a big pinwheel, what do we also have to do on the side to support that? And that's really the key, is we want to make sure we have that intentionality around it. We want to make sure that we're doing things with awareness and building it the way that we want to. And it's not just, hey, I make more money, I spend more money. I make more money, I spend more money. And that's what the kind of the trap that we want to get out of, because at the end of the day, we can either make decisions in one of 2 ways. One is we could just make decisions based on what we've learned up to this point in time. The second way is by learning something new. So for people that want to learn something new, learn a new way, kind of have new inputs to then get different outputs, that's what it's designed to help people with.
So size, needs, battery, and protections. Why don't we go into some of those? So the pinwheel size, when you talk about that, you're literally talking about the budget people have or the needs. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody has money that comes in the door, right? So let's say every month you get $10,000 in the door. That can only go one of 2 places. It's either saved or it's spent. That's it. Can't disappear. Maybe it feels like it's disappearing at times, but it can only go one of those 2 places. And so what we go through in about a 5-minute exercise is just breaking those 2 pieces down. Out of what comes into your pocket, how much is saved and how much is spent. And now you instantly know how big your pinwheel is. If you save $1,000 a month from that $10,000 that comes through the door, we now know your pinwheel size is $9,000 a month. I don't care if it's going to a nail salon. I don't care where it's going, because that's what you're living on. When people try to do budgeting and they try to break down every single penny and see where everything is going every month, it's tedious, it's unenjoyable, and they stop doing it the next time the dog gets sick, because the whole thing blows up. And so you have to structure it in a way that you can maintain positive momentum with it. I don't care if somebody spends $9,000 with fishing and vacations or nail salon and going to Broadway shows. It's still $9,000 at the end of the day. The pinwheel is still the same size. And so that's what we want to get to first. How much am I living on? It's a question that most people probably can't answer off the top of their head. How much do I live on a monthly basis? This allows you to do that in about 5 minutes without going through all that painful budgeting that most people try to do and then eventually give up on.
Wow. So you just hit something that I think is very important, and that is sustainability of a process. In other words, crazy story, but I mean, this last year, there was a couple days where I cycled 8 or 9 hours a day in France. I mean, it's
Oh,
crazy.
wow. Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But I can't do that every day.
Right.
And it's somebody who who does an Ironman. Like, you can't do that every day. And so if I hear what you're saying like you can't do these extreme things. You got to have a manageable, sustainable process. I like your dog analogy. So, do you see that a lot where people are essentially doing these extreme, unsustainable habits, and the financial pinwheel makes it more accessible?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to have to do something that you don't enjoy because you're not going to maintain it. And so when you think about it, you brought up cycling or exercise. I haven't heard anyone say, okay, you want to get in better shape, start with 7 days a week, and then try to keep it up forever. You
Yeah.
start with one day, then you move to 2 days, but you have to get into a rhythm that you're comfortable
Interesting.
with and that you can sustain. If you can't sustain it, then it kind of becomes pointless to even start the activity if you're not going to be able to make a positive, lasting impact. Nobody wants to get in shape for a week and then have everything fall apart. Same thing with your finances. You want to get them organized, get them set up, and then as you work your way through the pinwheel, the end is basically you just have to touch in on it once per year, or sooner if you change jobs or something like that. But it's kind of like a set it and check back onto it. It's not set it and forget it. It's not obsess over it all the time. It's set it up once, and now you can just check back in and make sure that you're going in those right steps going forward as your income changes, as life changes.
The second one is needs. So I imagine you being a father of two, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Two,
Correct.
and beautiful family you have here. I imagine those needs change. In other words, I just left my house. I have a 19, 17, and 15-year-old. College is a thing. Cars are a thing. All kinds of different needs are a thing. Sports at a different level. So you almost, what, would you agree that needs shift over time?
Yeah, everything changes over time. And so when you're looking at how you're working and where you're falling, we want you to be able to save enough to get to where you want to be down the road, but you don't want to save more than that necessarily either. So like if you're a teacher, right? And most of your retirement situation, most of your financial battery is going to be built up by resources from other people. So
Mm.
them, from a teacher in New Jersey, for example, most of their battery and their financial battery in retirement is going to be Social Security and their pension, those two things. And that might power anywhere from 90 to 100% of what they need. So they really only have to save most times 5 to 10% because their income is less, which means their financial pinwheel has to be brought in smaller. And the benefit, though, of that is it's much easier for them to retire because their pension and their Social Security is there. It's like your great grandparents, your grandparents, they would work the whole life and they didn't have to worry about any of this because they would get the pension, Social Security, and then they were good to go. So a teacher, more times than not, only has to save 5 to 10%. If you go through this and the teacher's saving 15%, I want the teacher to know, hey, maybe I want to take an extra vacation. Maybe I want to do something extra with my kids.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to put a little bit more away for college because I understand that relationship. I don't have to just save as much as I can blindly just because I want to build up as much as I can because I have no idea what's down the road. Let me get more educated. Let me have a better idea of what path I'm on so that I can make better decisions today to live my life happily. And that's what we're really trying to do, create more ability to make better decisions, more educated decisions today.
Wow. That's deep. Okay. And then the third one is, you've mentioned it a few times, but financial battery. So for somebody who just meets you for the first time, you're really talking about the ability to power that engine. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and there's different ways that you could power your financial battery. So people say, "Well, I have bank accounts, I have 401ks, I have all this kind of stuff." Like, what do I do with it? Where does it fall exactly? So this part of the book is about classifying. Okay, this is where it falls. This is how it breaks down. There's a protection piece, there's a flexibility piece, and there's a growth piece. So we want to make sure we're building out the cells of the financial battery in the right way so that we know how all those different pieces come together. So if you focus on that image where you are in the bottom right corner of the book jacket, you'll see that financial battery there is broken into the you piece and the them piece. So we want to make sure that if you're in an employment arena that requires a lot of self-savings, a lot of UPs, that you are doing that into the right buckets. If you're in an employment arena like a teacher where they're in the pension arena, then the them part of that battery cell is much bigger. And so we may not need to save enough. So again, it's about being more intentional with those pieces. So how do I build this battery that supports where I need to go? Calculators to say, hey, am I on track for what I need to do probably down the road? But again, circling back around to that more intentionality, more awareness, more education, so I can not just say I have a bunch of stuff in my attic. I want it to be organized so I can see this is what I need more of. This is what maybe I have too much of, and optimizing it for me to, again, be able to relieve that anxiety, get rid of that intimidation around it. I'm now, knowledge is power kind of a thing. Now I can live my life today in a more enjoyable way with my family.
That's powerful. I love it. Well, I'm into intellectual property. That's a big thing for me. And I just see you having IP all over the place, man. Whether it's the image, whether it's the term, the perpetual financial energy machine. I mean, there's a lot of IP here, which I think is awesome. Was that even in your mind when you were creating all this, of the unique aspect of this?
Well, I mean, the IP is something that was taught to me as we've gone along here. So, appreciate the great organizations that I've been working with here through Kary here to help with that. But yeah, it's just really about how do I best consume information. So there are other books that have used drawings that I found to be really helpful. And along with just the book, I created online courses and online Excel calculators, because I want it to be however you want to consume it. It should be available to you to consume in that way. Some books I prefer an audiobook, so we have that. Some books I prefer having the piece that I could touch, so I get that. Some books, if they have math and calculations, going online and be able to see someone explain it, see somebody plug in their own information and have all that calculated for them. If that's something that would be helpful to me, then I want to try to deliver that to other people as well. So every medium that people could see benefit in consuming it is how we tried to design it.
I like that. And really the main website is thefinancialpinwheel.com.
Correct. thefinancialpinwheel.com.
I love it. So talk a little bit about those courses, because you mentioned that, and I think you have like a whole treasure trove.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 30 plus different courses that I built out. And the way that I structured them, whereas the book is general and it goes through the general pieces, the courses, we built out 3 different versions of the course. So we have the starting out version for younger families. We have the established family course for people that may be, let's say, 35 to 45. And then we have those retirement focused families that might be 10 years away or so from retirement. So the concepts are the same, but how you implement them, how you think about them can change a little bit based on where you are in your life. So Kary, earlier you talked about how your kids are a little bit older, getting closer to college, how you're thinking about things and how you might be interpreting these concepts could be different at this stage in your life that it may be 10, 15 years from now. And so we built out the courses with that general framework so that wherever you are in your life, you can get the financial pinwheel concepts constructed to be talking specifically to this point of time for you so that you can get the most out of them. And with anything that is complicated, finances can be a little bit complicated. Seeing someone talk about them, seeing someone write on the whiteboard about them, seeing someone draw all the illustrations that go with it to really take that understanding to the next level, it was just so important to me because, again, I have my base practice and all that is great, but I want to help 100,000 people out there, and I need this to be a way that people get value from it. If I throw out stuff that people can't consume, can't make better improvements for their life, then I might as well not do it. So this is all about putting every necessary tool option out there for people to be able to consume it and have those middle-class families out there be able to make their lives a little bit better.
Wow. Well, I believe it. I believe that you can do that 100,000. I think you're going to. I mean, you're obviously motivated. You have the intellect, the drive, the distribution channels. I think it's fantastic. So if somebody says, I'm kind of near New Jersey, I really like this Joseph guy, what is your quote business website?
The quote business website is nhwm nhwmllc.com. So New Horizons Wealth Management, nhwmllc.com. For all Financial Pinwheel stuff, though, you could follow me on Instagram, Joe Okaly Finance, and you can find me and all my Financial Pinwheel updates and videos that I put out there through there.
Ooh, that's cool. I like that. So as we land the plane, what would you like to share with the audience? In other words, maybe I always try to find out, like, what was the engine behind this? I mean, did you grow up in a home that didn't have financial battery going on? Like, where did this come from to want to help the middle class person?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was growing up, I was on the upper end of middle class. My father had a great job at the time, but then he wound up having back surgery, got addicted to Oxy, and everything went down from there. So my
Wow.
family went from, 3 vacations a year to we have to sell our house. My mom went back to work after being home with the kids for 15 plus years. And
Gee.
so when you have something, you don't realize it. So if it's your normal, and this is just was my normal, I thought that that's just like what life was. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it gave me such perspective that has fueled me being a better father, being a better spouse, being able to care about people and have this empathy to want to help other people out in
Mm,
this world. And so that experience it's weird to call it positive, but the end result was it gave me the perspective that I have now to be the person I am today and be trying to make this impact for other people. So that was the biggest driving force of, putting myself out there. And I remember when I interned here, I said, Mom, you have to come here. They work with middle class families. They're the nicest people. I want you to like come in. And she wound up dancing in their office. She was so happy at the end of it because they gave her this education. They gave her this framework.
wow.
They allowed her to not feel the pressures and the stress that come with finances. And from that moment on, I said, I want to do this for other people. So the last
Mm,
15 years or so, it's been me working in a more traditional way with people one-on-one, which is great. It's fantastic. I love it. At the same time, I have this thing inside me that says, I want to help way more people than that. We have 100 plus million middle-class families in America. I'm helping 250. Like I got to help more than that. So,
wow.
so that's really the experience from my life that kind of fueled this mindset and fueled this drive to try to attain what I'm wanting to attain.
I'm so glad that we found each other through Strategic Coach. It's a great program. I've been totally shaped in my understanding of IP. You're obviously oozing intellectual property all over the place, but I think it's that balanced with your empathy and your story. And I'm so glad in the last few minutes we've heard that story because that's powerful, man. And if somebody's going through a painful situation right now, I think the hope that they can hear is, I caught that loud and clear, that it was the struggle that totally reorganized your thinking to be a better spouse, be a better father. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned it's the fuel. So thanks so much, Joseph, for being here today. And I want to encourage everybody to get a copy of the book. It's coming out in multiple versions. And again, it's called The Financial Pinwheel. And then the website that everything can be found at is thefinancialpinwheel.com and also on socials. So, Joseph, thanks for being here today. And we really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time, Kary. And like you said, Strategic Coach and all the great people that are out there helping me, get farther on this journey. Having the fuel inside me is one thing. Having the engine to then put it into to really get to where I want to go is another
Mm.
thing. So thanks for your time today as well, Kary, and everybody from your end too.
All right, folks, you know what to do. Get the book. We look